Everybody, what's up? Hope you guys are having a good day, and thanks for tuning into the channel. Much appreciated. And today I'm going to do a little video talking about one of the most important things that I think there is as far as regarding tournament fishing, and maybe just fun fishing as well. And that's sort of, that more ethical part of it, and some of the unspoken, unwritten rules of tournament fishing. And tournaments that they have their own set of rules and everything, and a lot of people follow those rules. They push them to the limit, but there's also some unwritten rules that are not in there that sort of come from it's just a matter of respect. Basically, it's basically doing the right thing, being a good person, and having a little bit of empathy for the other person around you. So today I'm going to sort of go over, in my opinion, what those are, the things that are important to me, and see what you guys think about it. But hey, before we get started here, just a couple quick housekeeping tips. If you guys haven't subscribed to the channel, just want to invite you guys to do that again. We're going to be giving away the pair of the Solar Bat sunglasses. Solar Bat is free supply bridge for beef jerky when we hit 25,000 subscribers. It should be a couple days from now, so subscribe if you haven't done that. And another thing I'll remind you guys is I had one of the subscribers sent me a note, and they said they told me, said, Randy, the reason a lot of guys are watching your stuff and not subscribing is they don't want to subscribe and get these notifications every day. But you guys can turn that notification button off, where you don't get the notifications and still subscribe. So that'd be much appreciated. So anyway, I just wanted to get that out of the way. So let's talk a little bit about the unwritten rules, and I'm going to cover the rules for both, what I think they are for boaters and non-boaters, non-co-anglers both. So let's start with the boaters. The first, probably the most important, well, they're all important, but probably the first one I'll talk about is respecting another person's area. And this right here is a real gray area, because some bodies of water are more conducive to attracting a lot of attention to specific spots, and some bodies of water, they're so spread out that not one area attracts attention. So the proximity, about how close that you can fish to another angler, a lot of it depends on the lake that you're fishing. I mean, if you're fishing a community hole lake, like some of the TVA lakes that has notoriety for people ganging up on creek channel intersections, that's one situation. But if you're fishing a lake like Lake Mead or Lake Cumberland in Kentucky, where it's so spread out and there's so much water, that proximity should become farther away from the other person. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the community hole situation. And here's the problem we've had on this. This used to not to be a problem in fishing, because years ago, most of the tournaments were like from the fall time of the year into the mid-spring. We didn't have many post-spawn tournaments or summer tournaments that put those fish out on the offshore structures. On top of that, once the GPS mapping come along, and once all the electronics and everything, it became really easy for anglers to pinpoint these big schools of bass on these certain key areas on some of the PVA lakes like Pickwick and Chickamauga and Gunnersville, creek channel intersections, ditches, real obvious type places where these fish school up at in the post spawn. So now you have this deal where you'll see a group of boats just casting around each other's boat. One of the unwritten rules in that is, like, if you fish like that, I mean, if you're one of those anglers that, if you're the first one on a spot like that, or if you're the fifth boat to pull in that, just show some courtesy. And when you roll in there, simply ask the person that's already there, say, hey man, I found my fish here. This is one of my key areas. I said, is it okay if I slip in here and we'll fish? And then, most of the time they may not like it, but they're going to say, yeah, come on in. If you get some guy out there that says, no man, this is my spot, and I'm dropping anchor and you can't fish 50 yards around, then you can come back and say, well, fine, dude, tomorrow I'm going to be in a flight earlier than you are. I'm going to be here before you are, and I'm going to drop my anchor, and you're not going to fish here. So it's always best when you're fishing a community hole like that to try to work together. Nobody likes it. It causes a lot of fights. In my opinion, tournament directors have no business scheduling tournaments in situations that are going to come up like that. There's so many other lakes we can fish, so many other times of the year. There's no reason to put a tournament on a community hole lake during the post spawn in the summer. But when you get in a situation like that, you just have to sort of work it out between you like that. But just show the person that you're there the common courtesy to do that. The other situation, as far as the proximity of close locations, if you have a lake that spreads out more, and like I said, I use Lake Mead, Lake Cumberland, a lot of big impoundments is the example where it's a pattern lake, where there's not like specific spots. If you roll into an area, and say you're fishing towards the back end of a creek or whatever, and you see somebody working down a stretch of docks or stretch of shoreline, and it's a big lake like that, you've got to give that person more space. Don't be pulling up, 50 yards in front of somebody and start fishing. Show that person a little bit of respect as far as how they're working down the bank there. If you want to fish that particular bank, then get in behind them and go the opposite direction. But don't come up and don't roll in front of them and start fishing the bank that you can see obviously they're planning on fishing. Another example, I see this a lot. Say I'm fishing and towards the back of a cove. I'm 2/3 of the way back in the cove or halfway back in, and I've got like another 100 yards to go to get to the back end. Don't idle past that person and go to the back of the cove and start fishing. I mean, that's just not cool. That person's working the way back there. If you have any doubt on it, just stop by the person on your way in there and say, hey man, I've got a fish on a bed in the back there, or I just want to run back here and I'm going to fish the back of this pocket, then I'm out of here. If you got any question, just show the courtesy to ask that person if that's cool to do that. Because that used not to be the problem. I mean, back in the day, back in the old school days, I remember, guys like Tommy Biffle, we'd be up the river, and if somebody got within a quarter of a mile of Biffle, he'd be all over him to get out of there. So, you don't see that anymore. People, they don't seem to respect other people's proximity in water quite as much. So basically that particular situation is just, being cool, treating the other angler how like you would want to be treated. Okay, the next unwritten rule has to do with boat driving. I see a bunch of nuts driving boats. I always have for years. People don't give boats the credit they deserve for being dangerous like they are. I've been in several tournaments where people have been killed, people have been injured in bass boats, seen bass boat wrecks, and I'm telling you guys right now, you can have an accident in a bass boat quicker than you'll ever believe, and you may never think you're going to, but it doesn't take much. It can take just hitting a wave at the wrong angle. You can just take your eye off of a wave for a split second. You cannot be aware. Bass boats are dangerous. They're dangerous, especially when you're driving them fast. So you have to give them the respect they deserve. One of the unwritten rules that you don't ever want to do is if you're running down the lake, and say for example if takeoff in a tournament or even whatever, if you're running down the lake and you're running parallel to a shoreline, safe distance away from it, don't cut between the bank and that boat, because I see this all the time, and I've even seen guys do it on curves. If you're going to pass somebody, pass them on a safe area, pass them away from the inside between the bank and the boat. I mean, that's just common courtesy. I've seen a lot of almost near accidents like that. And another thing is just back off a little bit. I mean, you don't have to run balls to the wall all the time when you're out there. Trim that motor down a little bit, tap down that testosterone, and think about safety over saving 3 seconds to get to your next spot. I mean, that's going to be a big deal with that. Another courtesy has to do with that is one of the unwritten rules is has to do with information sharing. One of the big keys in tournament fishing is if you're in it a long time and you're really serious about it, you sort of develop a network of friends that you can trust. And I'm telling you right now, in tournament fishing, trust is hard to earn and it's easy to lose. One of the things I'm going to tell you guys is so important is in tournament fishing is you've got to be straight with somebody that you decided to share information with, because what happens is when you're straight with somebody, that forms a bond that is very difficult to form. And once you've developed trust with somebody, you can bounce ideas off of, and it can help you both out. But at the same time, it can also hurt you if you give somebody too much information and it maybe points them in a direction trying to make something work that is not, that they just can't work. Or it may put, you may be on a real specific pattern, and by giving that pattern away, it may there may not be enough of that water, and it winds up hurting both of you. The best thing that you can do when you're working with somebody is basically keep that information pretty basic and generic. You can talk about, well, I found that this is the bait they're wanting, or this is the color that seems to be key, or this is the depth I'm fishing, or this is the speed of retrieve, or this is the general pattern. It's not that you're trying to hide something from them, but by keeping the information general like that, it doesn't influence the other person one way or not, but one way or another, too much. Say for example, say you got on a deal where you're catching them on boat docks, and say the lake you're fishing, there's only 10 boat docks on the lake. So, if you told your buddies, like, yeah, I'm catching them on docks and there's only 10 docks on the lake, then your buddy can either, that information's useless to him because he's not going to go in there and fish those 10 docks that you're fishing. So, that's a real, judgmental call with that. But the thing is what I'm saying on there, one of the unwritten rules is when you're sharing information with somebody, just be straight with them, be honest. Don't send them off on a wild goose chase, in something like that. So, and that's a real difficult one there. So let's talk a little bit about co-angler unwritten rules too. I fished with tons of co-anglers over the years. I mean, just thousands and thousands of co-anglers. And co-anglers, like I said, they run the gamut as far as personalities goes. You get some guys out there, like anything else, they're super laid back, they're super cool. Some guys want to learn about fishing, and then some guys they just want to catch as many fish as they can and finish as high in the tournament as they can. One of the unwritten rules in tournament fishing for co-anglers is simply don't cast up in front of the boat. I mean, that is just the biggest, the most basic one at all, because what happens, there's a couple different things that happens when you cast in front of the boat. Ideally, you should have this picture of this line down the middle of the boat and not cast past that middle line. Focus on what you're doing. What happens when you cast in front of the boat, here's the negativity that comes out of it. Number one, you take yourself away from the best angle. If you're a co-angler and you try to throw in front of the boat from the back of the boat, you don't have the angle. You simply don't have the angle. Your angle is out from the back of the boat. So right off the bat, you take yourself away, or you reduce your odds of actually catching fish by throwing up on the boat, front of the boat. Number two is, once you start doing that, you're going to distract your pro partner. He's going to be focused on you casting. He's going to be irritated by you casting in front of the boat, and it's going to throw his game plan off. It's going to affect his pace. And when you lose your pace and when you lose your focus, it's hard enough to catch bass as it is, but when you got some dude throwing up in front of the boat all the time, trying to compete with you, that really makes it twice as difficult. So, just don't throw up in front of the boat like that. And, thirdly, it's like, if you say, for example, your partner's catching one and he's unhooking, and you throw up in front of the boat and catch a good fish, which has happened to me several times, you may take your partner out of position to win that tournament. So one of the big unwritten rules in tournament fishing for co-anglers, and it's not in the official rules, is just don't throw up in front of the boat. I mean, that's just the basic thing with that. And to me, that's really the only unwritten rule that a co-angler should have, other than the fact that, don't share information from what you learned from your previous day's partner with the pro. I mean, that's sort of not cool too. But anyway, there's a lot of these rules, man. It's just common sense. The more that you do it, the more that, they become obvious. A lot of it is a generational thing. I mean, tournament fishing has changed. The pace of it's changed, the techniques and everything. And I simply don't see a lot of the same respect as far as the ethical part of it now that I did 20 or 30 years ago. I mean, it's just, I think a lot of it has just evolved like that. And I think a lot of it has evolved like that simply because of this whole offshore community whole TVA type deal. I mean, that right there has created, that's sort of the foundation for all of the tension and drama and stress around tournament fishing. So anyway, that's what would be my recommendation. But overall, man, you're going to do a lot better if you just get along with your peers. I mean, if you go out there and you try to get along and you try to do the right thing, if everybody does that, then it just works out better for everybody all the way around. I've never seen a situation come up before where you get into a heated argument on the water, on or off the water, that it turned out well for anybody. I mean, usually you wind up neutralizing each other. Both of you don't do any good in the tournament. And a lot of it is miscommunication. You have to communicate clearly what's going on, because a lot of times you'll have somebody that does something to a different angler, that may be unintentional. For example, up at Lake of the Ozarks, I had this guy, cut in between the dock and I was running past these docks, fairly close, and this guy cut between me and the dock, and I just almost ran him down and, said something to him, but I wanted to get in to fish this cove. And he came back around a couple minutes later and apologized. He said, "Randy," he said, "sorry about that, man." He goes, "I thought you were peeling off the other direction. That was my bad." So if you have a problem, whether it be driving or if it's fishing or whatever, just clarify that with your friends. I mean, get it out in the open and talk about it. And that way, there's not going to be as many hard feelings with that. So anyway, just a few rules, guys. Appreciate it. Let me know what you guys think about this video. I'm sure you guys got some opinions on what's the wrong and right thing to do on the water. Shoot me some comments and let me know, man. So thanks again for tuning into the video. Appreciate it. And we'll talk to you guys later on. See you.